I'll give the ranking member a little extra time if he so desires. With that, I'll recognize the gentleman from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And firstly, I was pleased to join on the Codell, and it was a very fine, good Codell. I appreciate the chair, my friend and my classmate from 2006. One of the things I found most heartening about the Codell, we had a tour of Parliament, and along with us were two conservative members who were, I think they were either in House of Lords, maybe one was in the Lords and one was in the House of Commons, but they talked to us about Magna Carta and about how it's the basis of our laws, and there was a copy there and copies here and there and whatever, but how precious the Magna Carta is. And they suggested to us that a legislator, this was in the House of Lords where he spoke, that a legislator is not somebody who votes. A legislator's job is not just to vote. A legislator's job is to stand up to an out-of-control executive. Very telling for British Parliament members to instruct us on what we should be doing, and I thank him for that. I'm a strong supporter of free speech and always have been, but I find this hearing a bit disingenuous because of the problems we have here in America. Free speech includes the speech of those with whom we disagree, people who say vile things, and in my case, I find racist and anti-Semitic and Islamophobic type speech is something I find foul, but it's protected by free speech and offensive speech as well. That does not mean that there aren't limitations, however, and speech can be harmful, dangerous, and infringe on other people's rights. It isn't a free-for-all, though. And the U.S. in our First Amendment does not have a monopoly on what constitutes free speech. There is speech protected by the First Amendment, like corporate political donations, which I think is misplaced and misapplied. And there are times when our legal system itself suppresses disfavored speech. I passed the Speech Act in the 111th Congress. I think Mr. Issa was my co-sponsor, and it dealt with the fact that Britain is a favored nation for defamation actions, and it's easy to get a defamation judgment there. We would not allow those judgments to be recognized here in our country under the Speech Act if the activities that took place did not conform to our laws on free speech. And I would think Mr. Farage could try to look at changing their laws on defamation and contour more to what we see in the First Amendment, and that might be good for the people in England. Two of my good friends, most revered friends, were from England, London, Christopher Hitchens and Sir Bill Browder. And they've written books, and they could be subject to such laws as well. But work on protecting your English authors, who, from Shakespeare on, they've been pretty good. We used to be bipartisan in these efforts to look out for free speech, but President Trump has taken on free speech in ways that would never have been thought about. And I think Mr. Lofgren brought some points to Professor Kaye. And it's not just laws, it's autocratic actions as well. President Trump, as Mr. Dalio said clearly, but so many other people have said it and felt it, is bringing us on the verge of an autocratic state. And his actions in trying to bring law firms to their knees, colleges to their knees, federal employees, students, et cetera, is anti-free speech, anti-opportunity, and fear for themselves and their futures if they speak out. Even Congress people could be subject in the future, I'm sure, with some of the ways we're seeing this Justice Department act with questions about their speech. Our president has sued every broadcasting company almost, and they've gone after CNN, they've gone after NBC, and they pick some of these fringe people to pick on the Ukrainian president about his attire. It's bizarre what's going on in our country, and I'm concerned. They try to silence and shake down those who don't conform to whatever the president thinks. We need to understand that his review of the Smithsonian exhibits and other African American museum and saying there was too much emphasis on how bad slavery was. I don't know how you could find anything good about slavery, and Edwin Starr, who's a singer, would tell you, slavery like war, there's absolutely nothing good about it. So we shouldn't be trying to. Professor Kaye, how would you compare, from your expertise, how we evaluate and compare with relative states of freedom of expression written in the United States? Where do you see the comparisons?
Well, I think right now we're at a very dismal place in the United States, but I do think that it's also worth thinking a bit about some of the issues that Mr. Farage raised. So, for example, he mentioned the issue of a law against Islamophobia, but there's also a lot of discussion about laws against anti-Semitism and against other attacks on people on their status, on the basis of their religion and so forth. Those are actually valuable conversations to have. But you can't just sort of pick and choose which censorship or which restrictions are okay and which are not. You really need to have a general view as to what's appropriate. And I think, again, the chairman's point about censorship being a focus on criticism is the appropriate one. And to the extent that we can make that comparison, which country is really doing more, or which countries are really doing more to tamp down, to silence critics, that's the harm to our democracy. And right now I see that more in the United States than I see in Europe or the UK.
Thank you,
I'm a gentleman,
Professor.
Mr. Barber.
And I'd just like to say to you, welcome. I have a lot of British friends and respect for Britain. I have a great time when I'm there, but I'm happy we won the war.
The gentleman yields back.